Hello YouTube! Today we have a new video because the new Royal Navy event is out and the characters have been added to the wiki. So we're gonna go over what each of those boats do. So let's have a look-see. I'm gonna zoom like this so we can see properly. I might move to the left side if necessary. Alright, so first and foremost we have HMS Lion. So Lion is the big hot lady. I actually really like her. I think she's very attractive. And not in too much of a Kuma way. It's that lady right there. Like, dude, look at her. Holy crap. I love her shoes so bad. Holy. Anyway, we are gonna check what she does. So first of all, obviously, she's a New York ship. She's a battleship from the Royal Navy. HP 84,033, 458. Yeah, okay. Yeah, heavy armor. Efficiency, BB main guns 170%, CL main guns or Dedo main guns, so she can use either. That's interesting. 200% efficiency. Okay, max 3, 4. Entire gun 120, and then bow gun or officer's sword. Pretty cool. She can get MGM plus 1 for the main gun. Main gun mounts plus 2 basically. Salvo capacity plus 1, interesting. Secondary gun mount plus 2. So overall pretty nice here. Now, as for what she actually does in game, let me move here. I might need to zoom a bit more, I'm not sure. I'm sure this will be enough. Should I be in the middle instead? No. Should I be small? Oh, I can be small, there it is. Yatta! Lion reminds me of Anise in her skin. Anise? From Nikkei? I don't know. Alright, first skill, World Gorging Lion Flame. When the ship fires a main gun, 50% chance... Well, 100%, I'm just gonna read the max level, okay? When she fires a main guns, 100% chance to fire level 10 Special Barrage 2. The damage is based on the skill's level. When the battle starts, and every 15 seconds after that, fires a level 10 Special Barrage 1 that inflicts Lion Flame on all enemies hit. Enemies affected by Lion Flame take damage once every 3 seconds. This is based on the Lion's firepower and the skills level. And enemies sunk while under the effect of Lion Flame will cause the effect to spread to the nearest enemy. So basically, she has a special burn called Lion Flame that will deal damage every 3 seconds. And if it sinks a ship, the dot will spread to the nearby enemy. Very nearest enemy. Very interesting. So, I feel that does mean that she's probably gonna be relatively good for like, dude, for mobbing, because she can like burn an enemy and then the fire will spread like super easily between all the enemies. But I feel like because this is a dot that lasts 15 seconds, you can definitely apply that to... Wait, actually the dot doesn't have a time. It doesn't say how long the dot works. Maybe it just stays there, the fire, until removed or the thing is dead. Interesting. Alright, Dust Moves the King. Increase the ship firepower and accuracy by 50%. We always like, you know, unconditional buffs. Increase the ship's shelling damage by 8% and increase the damage dealt to enemies affected by Lion Flame by 10%. So obviously, the dot that she applies on the enemy is gonna buff herself, which is very cool. When the ships attack an enemy affected by Lion Flame, increase the ship's crit rate by 10% and crit damage by 20%. When the fleet this ship is not in starts its first, second, or third battle of a sortie, as long as the ship is still afloat, fires level 10 support barrage 18 seconds after the start of the battle. That is pretty cool. So obviously we have cross-fleet barrage, and she has a lot of unconditional buffs, as well as buffs if she hits a target as a Lion Flame, which honestly shouldn't be that difficult. Because that pretty much happens every 15 seconds, right? And when the battle starts. So she'll basically be getting that buff pretty much all the time. Or like very often. As anytime she fires, she'll be getting that buff, basically. Finally, we have Aegis of the Realm. Increase the ship evasion by 15%. Decrease the ship damage taken by 10% for each enemy on the battlefield affected by Lion Flame. Up to 3 times, so she can reduce the damage she takes by up to 30%, which is very cool. When this ship will take torpedo damage, reduce the attack crit rate by 15% and crit damage by 30%. Okay, so basically here we have like a kind of like alternative burn damage dealer that gets a lot of self buff when hitting enemies that are burning, and also she gets a lot of self sustain from unconditional evasion increase as well as damage reduction when hitting enemies, when enemies are burning on the field. So I think that just makes her a pretty regular, battleship with big damage that is able to just stay afloat for a long time. We would obviously need to see exactly how good her barrage looks like. But I feel like on paper, this is pretty good. It's pretty fun. And I don't know if this is the brain rot from playing Expedition 33, but big fan of Burn. big fan of Burn. So far, I kind of like Lion, and I think it makes sense with, the theme of the lion mane, and the whole fire. Kind of gives me a vibe of like that lion Pokemon, like the fire Pokemon. Was it Sun and Moon? Yeah, I think it gives me vibe of that Sun legendary Pokemon for some reason. Anyway, moving on. Trafalgar. So this is the destroyer that you can obtain from point exchange, basically, right? Because this is a dual your event, which is always nice. Alright, let's see. DD main guns, 125. Stat-wise, yeah, pretty squishy. Torpedo damage is pretty good. She has some nice evasion, obviously light. Alright, 125 DD main gun, 120 torpedoes, 2, entire gun 160, and she can use hammer or dual sword. She gets an all-out assault, entire gun base +1, max torpedo capacity +1, preload torpedo +1, so we do have some preload here, which is nice. Upgrade all-out assault from 1 to 2, or weapon efficiency +5. Spread of normal torpedo launches reduced, which means that her torpedoes are going to be a little bit more concentrated. So that's very nice. Now, looking at what she does. Upon this blade shall victory be inscribed. Increase the ship firepower and accuracy by 10% when the ship fires a main gun. Alternate between using level 10 Heroic Wheel and level 10 Fearless Spirit. The damage is based on the skills level. Heroic Wheel unleashes a red sword shockwave that decreases the anti-air of enemies hit by 2% for 3 seconds. 2%? Okay. Fearless Spirit unleashes a blue sword shockwave that decreases the speed of enemies hit by 15% for 3 seconds. I will say what is kind of good here is that because this is a shockwave, I'm sure this is gonna hit everyone. Now 2% for 3 seconds and 15% for 3 seconds. I mean, the slow is kind of low and not necessarily for super long, but it might hit everyone. Now what I think is that because the anti-air decrease is only 2%, that feels way too low. So what I'm wondering, maybe the red sword shockwave means that there's multiple swords, and if multiple swords hit the same target, it's going to reduce, it's gonna stack. But this seems very low. A 2% anti-air decrease, I mean, this is nice, right? But that sounds very low for a UR destroyer. I might be missing something. This might be due to maybe there's multiple swords and it stacks up, so that can be actually pretty decent. Maybe you get like a 6 or 8% decrease. I'm not too sure about this so far. Upon this corpus shall irradiance adorn. Increase the ship anti-air by 5%, 15%. When your flagship performs an arcing main gun attack, restore 5% target cost max HP and create a luminous domain on the battlefield. Surface enemies present in the luminous domain get the luminosity buff. Decrease the evasion by 10% and decrease the damage dealt to Trafalgar by 15% for 10 seconds. Okay, this is already way better. I got everyone 60. Yo, congratulations! I hope I'm lucky as well with my pulls. So here, first of all, she gets unconditional anti-air, which is very nice. So on paper, she reduces enemy anti-air, and she buffs her own anti-air. So she seems to be, she might be a pretty good anti-air destroyer. Now, what is nice here is that obviously she has some self-heal every time she performs an arcing main gun attack, which means what we have in here, right? Main guns, alternate between blah blah blah, arcing. I think this means either Heroic Wheel or Fearless Spirit. So she will heal herself basically. Well, she fires a main gun. Oh, there's no specific cooldown on it, so it might just be depending on your reload speed. Okay. So she heals herself by 5%, and she then will create a big domain that reduces enemy evasion rate and damage dealt to her. So that's pretty good. She does seem pretty tanky with this because, you know, she has anti-air, she heals herself, she gains evasion, and, well, she'll decrease enemy evasion and decrease the damage they do to her. They deal to her. So that's pretty interesting. By this power, shall duty be done? Increase your ship main gun efficiency by 15%. That's nice. Increase your Royal Navy ship firepower torpedo navigation by 10%. Yo! She's a big buffer. Okay, suddenly she's way more interesting than what I thought she would be. She's straight up just buff firepower torpedo navigation by 10% for all Royal Navy ships. While this ship is afloat, when a fleet this ship is not in start of battle, increase the firepower torpedo AA of your Royal Navy ships in that fleet by 10%. And she buffs cross fleet by 10%. Firepower torpedo and anti-air. Oh shit, she's a great support. Oh, she seems like a great support. She gets all-out assault every 10 times with the main guns are fired. Okay, I really like this, damn. I think this is very nice because I feel like we really needed a strong Royal Navy support buffer. And she seems to be it. Yeah, she buffs her own fleet firepower, torpedo, and aviation, and the other fleet firepower, torpedo, and anti-air. This is pretty neat. 10% is nothing to scoff at, really. Okay, I like this. I'm still confused about the 2% anti-air, but this might stack with the amount of blade that hits. So maybe it's not as low as I think it might be, which means that maybe the speed decrease also stacks depending on the shockwave. Now moving on to Cleopatra and Glorious Meta, those are super rare rather than ultra rare. So for Cleopatra, she's actually class Dedo. That's interesting. What about the others? Class, okay. Okay, alright, let's see. Dedo. So she is a light cruiser. For light cruiser, 4k HP is pretty high. Am I crazy? I feel like for light cruiser, that's a lot of HP. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. I feel like I haven't checked numbers in forever, so I might be out of touch. 140% efficiency, CL main gun or DD main gun. That's interesting. That's two ships that can use DD main guns as an alternative. 130% torpedo. We have 2 here. Anti-air for 130%. Crossbow sword. Blah blah blah. She gets a preload torpedo. Max torpedo capacity as we saw earlier. Okay. Now let's see. 7 Heart, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome. Sunscott's Radiance, increase the ship main gun and torpedo efficiency by 20%, that's good. When the battle starts, increase the ship's crit rate by 8% for each ship in your vanguard. For each ship in your vanguard? That's such a low requirement. What does that mean? Wait, for each ship in your... I mean, that's gonna be like 24%, right? Like, am I missing something? This is straight up just 24% crit rate. It doesn't say, like, each ship, like, it doesn't say each Royal Navy ship here. Okay. Can stack up to 3 times. Every 20 seconds, fire a level 10 special barrage. The shells of this barrage inflict 15% accuracy debuff for 10 seconds on enemies hit, and torpedo inflicts 10% speed debuff for 10 seconds. That's pretty good. The speed debuff is kind of low, but it lasts 10 seconds, which is nice. That should include a self, otherwise it would be very confusing. I mean, I'm sure it includes a self. What I'm very confused about this one is the fact that, like, it's straight up each ship. Like, I mean, I like, you know, buffs that doesn't require, like, that lock you into a specific, like, maybe it would have been for each destroyer, or maybe it would have been for each, you know, light cruiser, or each Royal Navy ship. Now, it's just each ship. So, which means that, like, basically, you're always gonna have that buff unless you play with her alone in the Vanguard, right? Okay. Increase the ship evasion by 15%. Nice, we enjoy unconditional survivability. When the battle starts, decrease your fleet's aircraft damage taken by 5%. Nice. If there is another Royal Navy ship in your fleet, further decrease the aircraft damage taken by 5%, so to a maximum of 10%, which is very nice. So here we see that we are getting a lot of ship that have good anti-air and actually lowers the enemy's anti-air or make their own aircraft tankier. So this seems to be like, between Trafalgar and Cleopatra, we are having a interesting focus on anti-air and aircraft. If there's another blah, 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 blah. Every 10 seconds, the ship performs a horoscope reading, increase the firepower and torpedo of your Royal Navy Vanguard ships by 12% for 8 seconds. Man, another buffer. Okay. Then pick a random enemy and decrease the enemy's firepower and torpedo. Based on which of the above 2 stats was chosen, by 8% for 8 seconds. When this effect activated, there are 2 or more surface enemy present. This effect activates an additional time. Wow, that's pretty good. I kind of like this. And then here she gets an all-out assault every 10 times the main gun fired. That's very interesting. I like this. Buff your own team, debuff the enemy at the same time. This is pretty neat. Alright, let's take Glorious Meta next. Obviously, she's a meta character, aircraft carrier. 6,700. 150 fighters, up to 3. 130% torpedo bomber, she has 2. 130% torpedo bomber, again, she has 2. She can use a scepter hunting bow. Nothing too crazy here. All fighters +1, obviously. Hangar capacity +1. All torpedo bomber +1. Improves in the Zepho, glorious, all fighters +1. Okay. The entire ship seems to be popping off a bit more in the last event, huh? The 7 already did it, so it is with every newer ship for HMS that pops up that just goes, here, let me just do what you should have been doing from the beginning, Elizabeth. Yeah, I swear to God. I'm still upset. Why do we not have a fucking, like... I feel like they should have just made Elizabeth get a freaking retrofit and just give her all of those buffs. That's crazy. I'm so mad. Alright, anyway, Glory of Days Bygone. Wait, unless she already has a retrofit? No, but is she... Wait, is she... Dude, I don't remember. Let me see. Elizabeth? Queen! She's purple! Okay. That would only make her SR. They need to release a Queen Elizabeth second or something and make her UR, because this is ridiculous. She says no retro. Yeah, I swear to God. At this point, I think a retro would not be enough for her. I think she actually just needs a second version. Alright, finally, Glorious Meta. Let's have a look. Glory of Days Bygone. Every 20 seconds, 50% chance to perform I don't know what this means. Headbutt on the enemy with the lowest HP. A headbutt? Oh, is it just like a ramming attack? With the lowest HP and shorten the reload time with the ship's mid-reload torpedoes by 3 seconds. 50% chance is pretty low, I will say. Okay. 3 seconds after Glowworm Assault activates, the following takes effect. Glowworm? So is she supposed to work with the new Glowworm? Because she's getting a retrofit, right? Okay. Interesting. Interesting that they're actually making a meta work with a non-meta character. Alright. To take a Glowworm activate, the the following take effect. If this ship sustains damage equal to or exceeding 8% of her max HP during the above effect, she evades damage taken from enemy shells and ramming the enemy for 2 seconds. That's pretty nice. If this ship sunk an enemy, restore something of the ship's max HP. I think this is probably just an issue with the formatting. When the ship launches an airstrike, 70% chance to launch a level 10 special airstrike. Damage is based on the skill level. When the battle starts, increase the ship aviation by 15%. If there are 3 ships afloat in your vanguard, the above airstrike activate chance becomes 100% and the ship accuracy increases by 15%. Okay, at least here there is a big... I hate percentage chance. I hate the randomness. This is probably 2%, yeah. It's just like here, chance to perform some 3% headbutt on the enemy with the lowest... I feel like this is a mistake here, probably. At least here there is a way to actually get a 100% chance. This is why I hate this. Like here, her ramming is only like 15% chance to activate. Which is it's very fucking low. Let's be real here. It's very fucking low. Anyway, and she gets this ship's accuracy increased by 50%. This is pretty good. But about to start, this ship and your vanguard gain the Rosenmark status. Every 15 seconds, another random ship in your main fleet also gains the Rosenmark status. When a ship with Rosenmark status takes damage equal to or exceeding 1.5% of the ship max HP, Stone Reprisal activate, dealing damage equal to 5% of the damage that ship took to the enemy closest to her. Additionally, once per battle, the following effect activates based on the number of Tone Reprisal activation. 5. Increase the ship's damage dealt by 10%. 2. 10. Launches a special airstrike level 10 listing to skill glorious forevermore. So I think by 10 here, it's every 10 Stone Reprisal activation. Okay. Glorious forevermore would be this thing here. The 100% chance to throw something. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. If it activated 20 times, after the ship launches an airstrike, the next airstrike becomes available immediately. Ooh, double airstrike. 30 times, set the ship detection gauge to 0. Interesting. So, you know, camouflage. 40 times, restore HP equal to 8% of the ship's max HP for all your ships that have the Rosenmark status. That's kind of crazy. I unironically really like this Rosenmark stuff. I feel like in long fights, where you can really stack it up, like against bosses and stuff, this might be pretty good. Interesting. I'm always waiting. I'm like, honestly, I think she might be one of the most interesting meta characters we've had in a while, because I feel like most of the meta ship girls have been pretty underwhelming lately. But this is pretty interesting. Alright, Cinder of Hopes and Glorious. When fighting humanitarian fleets or boss fleet, increase the ship's damage dealt by 8%. There it is. Okay. Okay, interesting. Raid boss. Yeah, absolutely, Marksmaster. I agree. This is pretty interesting. Now, very quickly, we are going to be checking the retrofit for Glowworm Girl. She's a destroyer, obviously, from the Royal Navy, class G, blah, blah, blah. And with the retrofit, she gains about 150 HP, 10 firepower, about 55 torpedo. This doesn't change, and then she gets 40 evasion, and the race doesn't change. Okay. Efficiency of DD main gun increased by 5%, and then she goes from 1 to 2, which is pretty good. Torpedo only increased by 5, entire gun does not change. Okay. Alright, let's see here. Retrofit. Every 20-second, 100% chance to perform a level 10 headbutt on the enemy with the lowest HP and shorten the reload time. The ship mid-reload torpedoes by 3 seconds. 2 seconds, the Glowworm assault activate the following takes effect. The ship sustains damage equal to or exceeding 8% of the max HP during the above effect. She evades damage taken from any shells and ramming the enemy for 2 seconds, which is basically exactly the same thing we can see here from the Glowworm assault. So basically, the way I understand it is that when Glowworm does her ramming attack, her and Glorious meta get the same buff. The ship suck an enemy, restore 10% of the ship max HP. The healing, this might tell us that this is a 10% healing actually. Okay, interesting. Vanguard ship, is that the only skill getting... That might just be the only skill. Is it a new skill, actually? I think it might be a new skill. Because if we look... Let me check Glowworm. Yeah, it's a new skin. A skill. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay. So basically, she just gets a 100% chance to perform a headbutt. Which now kind of makes more sense here, because basically this is like Glowworm's skill, but Glorious Meta gets a chance to do a follow-up, basically. So if you put them together, maybe they can do so interesting ramming, which is fun, because if you put like her, Glorious, and Mogador together, you might be able to do a massive like entire Vanguard ramming shenanigans cheese, which could be fun. I would say, overall, I kind of like what Lion does because of the burn, right? Trafalgar seems very fun. We really are going to have to see if the sword here for the shockwave actually stacks and it's become more than just a 2% debuff, because it's a bit underwhelming. That said, I really like the rest here. The fact that she's a massive buffer for Royal Navy is crazy. I think Trafalgar might be the MVP of this patch. Cleopatra is pretty interesting as well, with the whole, she does also gives buff and debuff the enemy, and there's some things going on with aircraft tankiness. Glorious Meta seems to be kind of an interesting ship to pair with Glowworm. We'll have to see how well they actually perform together. So there we go, that's my thought here. Very interesting patch, very interesting characters. Yeah. So next, what we're gonna have to do is pull for the characters. So yeah, stay tuned. We're gonna do that in just a jiffy. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, for those that watch this on YouTube, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!